The views of Radio 1, WTLC AM 1310, 92.7 FM, 95.1 FM, The Light, and its management. And now, to address the legal concerns of our community, AM 1310, The Light presents Legally Speaking.
Good morning. From all our special listeners on 1310. We're also broadcast on radio station 92.7 FM and 95.1. You can also join us live on Facebook under a legal issue of today with attorney Nathaniel Lee. And finally on YouTube. Don't forget the shows on YouTube, and eventually we also download it on podcast with legal issues of today with attorney Nathaniel Lee. Today is another day in American history that's important. We have our superstar panel, attorney Vanita Banks, who provide great inside research on so many different legal topics, recognized national expert on subject matters that we discussed. We also have attorney Milton Grimes, who famously represented the Rodney King case. But before we get started, today we have folks who visit the nation capital, and they are demanding release of the people who tried to overthrow the federal government. It's a strange episode in American history, based on the fact that the people who raided the Capitol, resulted in death and significant injuries and over $550 million in damages, are receiving relatively likely light outcome. Many people really strongly detest the soft glove treatment they're getting, but we'll get into these subject matters today. First, attorney Banks, how are you doing today? Okay, I don't have on the voice yet. And what we talked about last time also, this week we had the famous election recall in California. And California is one of the few states in America that they only need a small percentage of the voters to sign a petition to do a recall, I think about 12%. And it was a strange paradox in American history. The governor won the election with 63% of the vote to the Republican challenge 36%. In the recall election, the governor could have been recalled with less than a small percentage of the vote that he got to win. But luckily, he survived with a recall effort of 64%. It was a sounding defeat to the Republicans who had conducted the recall. Now, what was the recall issue that they started out with? Well, they were upset. Last year, as you recall, we had the worst pandemic during our lifetime. People were dying every day. Hundreds of people, thousands of people, and the virus was killing people. It was incredible, the number of people that were dying. Despite this death, a lot of people were against shutting down the government. They were against wearing masks. They were against social distancing. The governor put in strict requirements, and for whatever reason, there are some people who rebelled against it. In spite of the fact that hospitals were overfilled, and it was a certain tragedy. And it was just bizarre. And even today, we've somehow made a public health crisis a political issue. That's a sad day in American history. And I think we're probably the only country in the whole world that have somehow made vaccination a political issue. Folks, it's a dumb idea. Every time I see clients in my office, I try to insist that they get vaccinated as quickly as possible, because I don't want them to expose me or my staff to the virus. Even though we've all been vaccinated, I don't want to have people around me that potentially has contracted the virus because they did not receive vaccination. Hey, Attorney Banks, there's a lot of issues that we was going to go over today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you, Attorney Lee. I was momentarily on mute, but I was able to unmute myself.
Well, it's a good deal. And what was the first issue that you want to start off with today?
Well, you've referenced two matters that are timely in terms of the breaking news for this week. First, just to go back to the California recall. And first of all, to your point, Attorney Lee, this whole recall process is truly undemocratic. And in California, in one election, the voters can decide two things. One, whether to recall a governor, and then two, who will be that governor's replacement. And so if a majority vote to recall, then whoever gets the most votes wins. And so, as you know, that is not a democratic process. And also what was very interesting was that just as recently as July, it appeared that Governor Newsom was lagging behind and might be in danger of losing this recall vote. But which was successful back in 2003 when Arnold Schwarzenegger was elected as a result of a recall of the then Democratic governor. Instead, on or about that time, you'll recall, Attorney Lee, that the party, hello? What's better? That the party got behind Larry Elder, a very polarizing candidate who was advocating conspiracy theories, anti-abortion rights, denier of climate change. He was advocating that former slaveholders receive reparations, as well as a zero minimum wage. And so not a very wise strategy, as it turned out, with 67% of the voters voting no and 36% voting yes. And Governor Newsom's strategy was wise in not focusing on his accomplishments, but really focusing on the issues that were important to California residents and voters, and that was COVID-19. And that was the biggest issue in terms of polling that concerned California voters. COVID-19, putting an end to this pandemic through masking and other requirements consistent with the science. And in fact, 63% of voters say that getting vaccinated is a public health responsibility, as opposed to what we hear from a minority of voters that getting vaccinated is a, quote, personal choice. And so the success of this recall election earlier this week, hinged on COVID-19, strong mask mandates. In fact, many voters shared that they believe that those mandates should be even stricter than what they currently are.
What I don't understand is that, because we always have people come in, our phone number, of course, is 317-239-1310. But what I've never understood is that when I hear people talking about this vaccination process, they say, I don't know what's in it. It could cause me illness. And I always reference the fact that something very basic. If you went to a public high school anywhere in the country, you'd have had a minimum of 5 vaccinations prior to graduation. If you were in the military, depending on your specialty, if it was infantry, for example, you may have had another 6 or 7, depending on what your anticipated duty station would have been. So some people have had 15 vaccinations, depending on their specialty, but you had a minimum of 5. And in the and I keep seeing this issue pop up. And what they've highlighted on the TV station that I think is very critical, they're showing these folks constantly getting sick and dying who are opposed to being vaccinated. And it's a terrible American tragedy. It's a terrible thing to see so many people die needlessly. So I want to make sure that all our listeners pay close attention to this. And if you've not been vaccinated, go ahead and get vaccinated today because it's readily available at your drugstores, and you can go to the website and you can go in and get the shot in 15 minutes, and that could save your life. But the other issue, though, Attorney Banks, speaking of that campaign recall in California, what troubled me about that is that somehow these folks embraced a person who not only was, well, I thought a lot of things he said was a blatant racist in the sense that he was against the immigrants. He basically against things that promote progressive policies. And I watched some of his interviews. The slavery content, when he made that statement, it was troubling because it showed a complete ignorance of American history. And when I saw that, I said, I saw this occur during the political campaign. I remember even a performing artist, a rap artist, even talked about slavery was a choice. And a lot of people don't realize how harmful that institution has been to Black Americans. That process, it took away identity, land, ownership, abundance. You worked for free, you became someone else's property. And we see that the adverse effect of that even today. We fight every day to have equal access to loans to get business started, access to commercial property. Like here in Indianapolis, Attorney Banks, for example, very few of any Blacks own commercial buildings downtown Indianapolis, for example. We go from city to city. We've not even ingrained ourselves into that aspect. So, having said that, when you consider the fact that we've now politicized public health issues, and we made, over the last 4 years, we made the idea of being having racial hostility popular until we were in the wrong direction. So hopefully we can get this trend reversed, particularly in the midterm elections, and get back on course as an American. Now, but the second issue that bothered me is that the folks are going to DC today, and the United States government put up a strong military presence, and we'll see the results of it tonight. Hopefully no one's get hurt. But I was troubled by the fact that even this congressional, some of these right-wing conservative, like Carthon out of North Carolina, they say that they should free these people who tried to overthrow the federal government. It's just baffling to me, Attorney Banks.
Absolutely, Attorney Lee. And so far as I'm watching the news coverage today, it is anticipated that there will be, well, in fact, a permit was secured for 700 people in DC. And their rallies that actually 13.
How many? Okay, we've temporarily lost Attorney Banks. Okay, I can hear you now. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I'm sorry. There are actually 13 other rallies that are scheduled across the United States today. And these are rallies in support of those that waged an insurrection on our capital, the seat of our democracy, on January 6th. And so far, there have been in excess of 650 arrests, millions of dollars in property damage, and there have been 59 guilty pleas. And the Department of Justice website lists all of those individuals that have been charged with crimes committed at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. And those crimes, Attorney Lee, include disorderly conduct, civil disorder, assault, unlawful possession of firearms, theft of government property. And as you know, we were not able to have a bipartisan congressional commission established to investigate this insurrection. And of course, Speaker Nancy Pelosi did establish her own commission.
Well, good. Okay, let's go to the line real quickly. Let's take one of our callers. Caller, you have a question or comment for legal issues of today.
Good morning, Nate, and good morning, Attorney Banks. Is that who's on?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Nate?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Just wanted to call in, and I hope Milton Grimes is listening, Attorney Grimes. Just wanted to call in and talk about the testimony that the ladies gave this week up there in, on the Senate, the gymnast. And the answer
Yes.
to the question, the answer to the question is how much is a little girl worth? Well, in the city of Indianapolis, in this jurisdiction, apparently not much, especially when it comes to the FBI. As you know, Nate, I've been bashing the FBI here in town for a long time because, one of the things that people don't understand is these special agents in charge, they don't investigate big corporations, especially if they have something to gain. They're always looking for that next job when they get ready to leave the FBI. And a lot of companies like Amazon and Walmart, they're not going to investigate these companies because they want to go and work for them. And plus, they're not going to. One of the things I think the Senate Judiciary Committee missed is that Abbott's attorney, the FBI agent that didn't do a good job, his attorney is the former U.S. attorney that was in charge when he was the special agent in charge. And they didn't talk much about that. So I just wanted to bring that up. And, so these FBI agents, as you and Attorney Banks know and Grimes know, that in Los Angeles and Chicago, there's a lot of political bodies buried here in Indianapolis and in Chicago and LA, and they're not going to prosecute that special agent in charge because he knows and he's probably seen and done a lot of things for a lot of people for the Department of Justice, and just think of the defense he could if he had to go on trial. And that's all I wanted to say. And thanks for taking my
call. What the caller was talking about, and thank you, Attorney Grimes, for joining us. He's talking about the FBI suppressing the rape and sexual assault testimony by numerous American gymnasts. Simone Biles, the most recognizable American gymnast, they testified as to how their statements were suppressed and how a serial rapist basically got away with causing much harm to these young ladies. Now, these were children who, of course, were teenagers, like 13, 14, 15 years old. And so this Nasser, who was a physician, apparently engaged in rampant sexual assault. He ended up pleading guilty and got, seemed like over 100 years incarceration in Michigan, but he did incredible damage. And the gymnasts testified before Congress that they were abandoned. The statements they gave to FBI agent were suppressed, and the net result is it allowed this person to continue to violate these young kids. And it was a shameful episode in American history. And hopefully we don't ever see a repeat of that ever again. So thank you for bringing that up, caller. We did pay attention to that. It was a very sober, telling type episode when the young ladies, they were all beautiful gymnasts, very talented young ladies. They've grown up, you know, because we're talking about something that happened several years ago that went on for a substantial period of time. Now, but Attorney Grimes, one quick thing I want to talk to you about when we come back from the radio break, but we'll go forward. That is that in your state, you had a guy named Larry Elder who came within about 30, 60, about 17 percentage point of doing a recall on your governor. I know he won 63, 64%, but how in the world can you at least clarify that? How could it be possibly constitutional for a lunatic to win the governor's race with such a small percentage of the vote? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, the lunatic part is the precedent has been set by your former president that a lunatic can win a major election. So that part of the question is easy to answer. He just took a hot issue, an issue that people were polarized on, and he promised them that he would give them the type of government.
Realtors don't want you to know. The best way to sell your home is to find a cash buyer willing to do all the repairs, pay all the closing.
So that's how he came that close. Nate, how did Donald Trump win? This is the times we're living in, is all I can say. I'm sure Miss Banks.
Tragic.
Yeah, it is tragic.
A long time. And so he really was no stranger to us. And also, that recall was a great example of how you don't polarize, the election. And Larry Elder is a very polarizing individual.
He's a very what? I didn't hear you, Vanita.
Polarizing, to say the least.
Yeah. He says the things that he think will draw attention and excite people. And that's the way politics is in America today, Nate.
Well, what I don't understand, though, is that we had a person that totally unfit to even run for governor. And somehow, on the Republican side, he got like 39% of the vote. On the Republican, I know it was only at 39%, only amounted to about 11% of the total vote. But I was troubled by that many people voted for a lunatic. I don't get it.
I'm not surprised that he got that many votes because that's what's happening today. I was surprised yesterday, and I apologize for being late, and I won't go into the explanation of it. I'll tell you later. But I was surprised. I thought I saw something pass my screen yesterday. We've been working the last week or so for this trial coming up on the 27th, and it's sort of just taken over my thinking. But I thought I saw something come up on the screen yesterday that the United States has admitted to making a mistake in that bombing. Is that correct? And killing.
That's correct.
Have you spoken about that yet? I know CNN had a lot to do with bringing that out. And I see that the Pentagon has admitted to it. Did I see that blurb correctly?
Yes. What you're talking about is that in Afghanistan, there was one of the problems why a lot of Afghanistan hated America is that one report there was like about 90,000 Afghans killed by misdirectional bombing and things like that during 20-year occupancy of their country. And most of the people hated the American president that appeared. And a lot of people didn't realize the human suffering for a country that was always in civil war for a century, it seems like. And so we intervened in this matter. Instead of going to Pakistan to locate Osama bin Laden, we invaded Afghanistan. We got stuck in their civil war for 20 years. Then the pullout, a lot of people thought it was disastrous, but not realizing that no matter how they did that, it was going to be disastrous. And the third thing is that I don't think that anybody predicted that that government would fold and that the Afghan army would embrace the Taliban so quickly. It was kind of bizarre. But then Trump had cut a political deal with the Taliban during his administration that enhanced their posture. So they're taking over their country. It was predictable that that would occur, but the issue is that nobody thought it would be in a couple of days, that the Afghan army would just surrender so easily without putting up a fight. But
well, I didn't mean to change the subject from Larry Elder. It's just that came by on my mind at the time. That's why I threw it out there, Nate. But
well, I thought that was an important issue.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Attorney Banks.
Pentagon stated this week the breaking news that Milton just referenced, that the drone attack on August 29th killed up to 10 civilians in Afghanistan.
Hey, Attorney Banks, we can't hear you. Can you turn your volume up a little bit? Hello?
Hear me? Can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
That attack on August 29th, the drone attack, killed up to 10 civilians in Afghanistan, and including 7 children. And it was just a tragic event. That was
Well, it was tragic.
I was just surprised that. Go ahead, Nate. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I thought it was tragic, but go ahead, Milton.
I was just shocked and surprised that the Pentagon admitted to it, which is just my whole thing about transparency. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake, and don't lie about it. So I was just surprised by that, and I'm thankful for that, and that's what I wanted to get across too. But CNN had to bring it out.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, you know what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of times they make those mistakes, they recognize it, they pay compensation to victims in a lot of situations. And it'd be interesting to see what happened to blowback. If they try to compensate the victim, then the right wing of the Republican Party are going to say, oh, they're selling out. I mean, but I think that when you do wrong, you harm people, that you should pay compensation. That's just the way the American system works.
I think the other side of that too, though, when you do that and you harm people and you kill 7 children, you have made some enemies for life, and you have made probably a terrorist or 2 to death. That's what I think.
Wow. Well, that's
so, you know, and
kind of weird.
When we see these terrorist acts and we see people do barbaric things, there's a backstory a lot of times to that. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying there's a backstory sometimes to that. I think that's what we have to understand and appreciate, and do something to bring more peace.
One other thing too, that is in the news, is that it's troublesome to me. I saw a glimpse of it this morning when I was watching CNN. That is that you have the 20,000 Haitians stuck at the border, and I'm not an immigration lawyer, but I don't get that. So much human suffering. I'm trying to figure out what is the remedy for this type of situation.
You dwell in the politics more than I do, Nathaniel. You're supposed to know the solution to these problems that we are now seeing more on the news that we used not to see. I don't know. I can't even remember being on a program, on a radio program on a Saturday morning. So I don't know.
Well, what happened is that the government of Haiti went through some of a series of terrible tragedy. Number one, they had a coup where the president was murdered, but before that, they had some unrest. They one of the most impoverished nations in this part of the world, and so they start way behind.
Yeah.
The second thing, though, is after the death of their president, they've had unlimited political turmoil. The third thing is that they had a tragedy with the hurricane and things like that. They had so much human tragedy and so many people dying. And so now you have people fleeing the country just to get a better way of life, to get back from the oppressive nature of their government that's inconsistent. I think that the number one thing that we must do to resolve that problem, we have to invest in Haiti like immediately. We got to get them food and some accommodation to get the Haiti people to stay in Haiti. That's the number one thing we must do. And we have a lot of Haitian Americans that live in our country that are very productive. Like Jean Pierre, for example, at the White House, she's Haitian. So they're everywhere. But we have to, at a minimum, address the terrible crisis in their country. Because just having these people travel to our country is unsafe. I was looking at their living condition. I guess they think it's better to live underneath a bridge than to stay in their country, which is a sad commentary. So we have to intervene right away in their country to make it more livable. And we spend a lot of money. Now that we're not spending billions of dollars every day in Afghanistan, maybe we could do some nation building in a country like Haiti. It don't take a lot of money, but they need food, supplies, basic things like water. They need some energy to be able to cook their foods and things like that. They need medical supplies. A lot of injuries. Their hospitals don't have supplies. And we also, one of the problems that we're going to encounter is that they didn't have a vaccination program that was workable. But then in their country, so they had so many different issues like that. So we have to work starting out to try to fix some of those issues so their issue don't become our issue. And that's my take on the Milton. I don't think that it's ever a good idea for people to leave their home country and just leave. You need to leave your country if you get a better life. But if you don't have a status to get citizenship and all you do is come to the country and don't have any money in place to stay, maybe you're better off being in the United States, but not a lot better off. And that's why I advocate that we need to strengthen their own government structure right away. And so if I was a politician, that would be my number one strategy, try to fix what can be fixed in their country. And then, of course, the medical issue there is critical. We may have to take our ship there to try to treat some of their injured folks. I know that there's been some outreach, but we have to be more aggressive in terms of nation building there. Now, in terms of the political structure and things like that, I don't have an opinion at this time because I've not studied the pros and cons of what they're trying to accomplish politically. So that's my take on it, Milton.
Okay. Okay. I hope I'm not changing the subject again on you guys, but I'm partway through this book by Charles Blow about the enemy and about migration. as well as I know the title of it, I can't give it to you right now, but he's talking about how blacks migrated from the South going north and west,
Time to have
and how we may,
fun.
have,
You can do it. Your
Okay, go ahead.
how we may have been better off, may be better off yet going back to the South, going back to those places that we were highly populated and developing the local and state and county governments and national governments out of the strength that we had there in numbers. Sometimes it's good to just build up where you are than to expect betterment somewhere else, essentially. So what you
What are your
just
thoughts,
said,
Attorney Banks?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, it's slight echo.
Yes, I'm experiencing on my end audio problems today. I wanted to just go back to the humanitarian emergency that we're witnessing in Texas with respect to our fellow Haitians. And I agree with you, Attorney Lee, that we need to first address short-term issues and provide our Haitian people with the supplies and emergency goods and medical and supplies, food, etc., that they need, because this country is one of the most impoverished in the world, and I have experienced one tragedy after another, and more recently, as you know, the assassination of the president, then followed by, the hurricane. And so, as you stated, Attorney Lee, a comprehensive strategy, first with respect to short-term needs, but secondly, just a comprehensive strategy to support and assist this nation. And again, to your point, which contributes so much positive to the United States.
Okay, let's go to the phone line to Reverend Thornton. You have a question or comment for us today, Reverend?
Hey, Dr. Lee, I want to thank you, first of all, for the support that you gave me in a very traumatic situation that occurred with me. You were one of the first responders, so I want to publicly thank you for your support. My question, or I guess to allude to what you were talking about with Haiti, I think it's not so much food. I don't think, from their perspective of clothing or whatever. Their problem is the political climate with individuals that circumvent all of the support that a lot of people are giving to them. These individuals have allowed that all of that food and whatever support to be squandered or used by illegal individuals. So I think their situation is more establishing a more of a governmental structure that can support the people, because their system, as you know, is pretty corrupt. So when you've got that in place, no matter how much world support you're giving, those individuals are going to circumvent that in order to, I guess, keep the money coming, and also to support, causing those people to suffer. So I think a lot of that is with a whole lot of countries. If the government would be more compassionate, I think a lot of these problems could be remedied, whether it's Mexico or wherever it is. It's all about the government structure.
Hey, well, Pastor, okay, but I saw those horrific scenes of sick children. I saw, the human suffering. What do you think should be done to eradicate or reduce that terrible tragedy that's going on in our country? I mean, I just saw little kids not able to get medical care. It was troublesome to me, Pastor, quite frankly.
call us. And millions and millions
Once again,
of dollars
I guess if you're
have flowed to Haiti, and there's always a question.
I'm sorry. Wait a second. I can't hear you guys. I said, Pastor, what were you saying?
Well, I was saying I was listening to one of the other attorneys. I was listening to.
Yeah, but what is the solution? I mean, I just can't. We got to do something. I think dramatically and faster.
A lot of these governmental positions in these countries are causing the problem with the human suffering that you're talking about. And until that government is in a way, established in a way that is more compassionate to the people, you're going to have anarchy. You're going to have that in Venezuela. You're going to have that in Mexico. You're going to have that in Guatemala. You're going to have it all over in Brazil. All of this is because of individuals in government that are causing the problem. They get the money and they want the money all to themselves, and they don't care nothing about the people. And these people are suffering and trying to run from the tyranny of their government. Even when you talk about Afghanistan, those people in Afghanistan is suffering under rules and power, and a lot of them under different religious ideology and stuff. And this is what's causing the problem and the conflict. And for America to think that they can solve all of these problems, they don't understand the people's culture. And some of the cultures are older than U.S. culture.
Right.
And so therefore, we're trying to police the world, and all the stuff that's happening right here with reparation they don't want to deal with. So I think it's all in the government structure that causes the problem that we're talking about. And if they change that, I think a lot of times people can really be taken care of. But it's at the top.
Well, thank you very much, Reverend. And next caller, William. William got a comment for us. Oh, go ahead. William, thanks for holding. What was your comment?
How you doing, Mr. Lee?
I'm doing great. I can't hardly hear you today. We're having some technical difficulties because could you turn your volume up a little bit?
I can't understand why it is that we are. You can't hear me?
I can barely hear you. Are you talking to a speakerphone or directly to your phone?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
A little bit better.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I can hear you now. Go ahead.
I can't understand why the United States is constantly looking overseas at the other people's problems when we got great problems right here in the United States. I was looking at a report yesterday. There were 31,000 homicides on the streets of America. And that's almost equal to the number of people that were killed in all of the war in Vietnam. And we were in that country for more than 10 years, constantly fighting every day. 31,000 some odd people killed because the NRA refused to allow the American legislators to enact laws that would regulate the guns on the streets of the city. If we would come together and pass some legislators, Mr. Lee, if they don't want to ban the gun 1,000 times and 1,000 times more, if I have to say it, if they don't want to ban the gun, ban the bullet. If they don't want to ban the bullet, put a price on them so high, the bullets, so high that the people can't afford to be wasting the bullets, even if they have them. Because without the bullet, a gun is just an accessory, a walking stick. That's the point that I have, and I want to just sit back and listen to see to hear what the response is.
Well, I missed the last part of the comment. Did you hear it, Milton or Vanita?
I didn't hear all that he said. I'm sorry. I heard about
Yeah.
taking the bullets and guns will be walking sticks, but I did not hear his total statement.
Yeah, one thing that Vietnam War you talked about went on from 55 to 74, and there was actually 282,000 United States and Allied military deaths in that war, and in the north and south Vietnamese there were 627,000. Total death was 1.3 million. It was a very lengthy war and a lot of death. And so let's get our commentator Larry on the call. He has a comment today from the right side. Larry, you have a comment today, sir.
I just do, and it's really discouraging, Nate, when I heard three educated attorneys, and you don't want to address the problem that we're having on our border with all these people, and you see inequity when you get Black Haitians down there. They can't be accommodated. They never have been accommodated, and nothing said about this. But all the people that are coming from South America, how much do we owe them? I mean, do we go down there to stabilize their economy and destroy their agricultural production? Yes, we've done that. But I think we have problems right here in this country that need to be addressed. And another thing, we need to get rid of this COVID bill, because if we shut our cities and stuff down again, that only adds to the problem. You can just imagine. I know you guys are plugged into the scene. When all these people start getting thrown out of their homes this winter, the death toll is certainly going to increase, but it's going to be due to homelessness. And I heard our coroner, Nate, you always talk about the refrigeration units they have at the coroner's office. He told me that those bodies are coming in there from good homeless people, that they're now drugging up and they're walking the streets on a scooper with a $5,000 bottle of pharmaceuticals in their pocket to die, because that drug causes constipation, and that's one of the major sources of their death. But when they come across the threshold of dead, they always call it COVID. If somebody gets shot in the head 3 times, COVID. I mean, there is somebody that's got to be truthful about what's going on, Nate. I mean, you wouldn't subvert a government in any other way than the way they're doing now. It's like dropping a neutron bomb to destroy the existing population. And Joe Biden has already labeled the Black people as the pariahs and the source of all our problems. So I don't know how you guys' thought process runs, but it's really discouraging. I'm sorry, Nate. Thank you.
Well, okay. One thing, Larry, I got updated the coroner's office. They got rid of the refrigerated trucks and they moved the bodies to the east side to a refrigerated unit. And so, but the second thing I need to point out to you, Larry, people are dying still with COVID, and the hospitals. I have many doctors who are friends of mine, and they're sick and tired of seeing unvaccinated people come to the hospital. Right now, in almost most of the states, you cannot have elective surgical procedure. Like, for example, I have a friend of mine who needs hip or knee replacement surgery. They're having painful episode every day. They cannot have the surgical process done now because the hospital are filled with COVID patients. And so their surgery has been put off until sometime next year because of the crisis we're dealing with. So make no mistake, COVID is our #1 crisis in the country. I think right behind COVID, though, is the lunatic right-wing terrorists trying to take over the country. I think that's equally bad for our national economy, bad for the country in general. We have the people protesting around the country. Attorney Banks pointed that out. So I'll tell you what a lot of people think, folks. COVID is a real problem. People still dying every day. The hospitals are crowded with COVID patients. You can talk to any hospitalist here in this city or any city, they'll tell you the same thing. So it's real. So Contrary to what anybody tell you, if you've not been vaccinated, please, please, please go out and get it done today. But Milton, Vanita, we hear this every day. Now you see what people are thinking.
That's why I guess I was so impressed with the Pentagon admitting that it made a mistake in that drone hit and killed innocent people. This fake news epidemic that we have, Nate, or trend, is causing people like Larry calling in, sounding very authoritative, very knowledgeable. He definitely sounds like an educated man, but you're different with him on what the truth is and the facts are. I don't know what to do with this fake news that's being generated to get people to react to and to protest. And aren't they going to be having a protest today in Washington, D.C. Regarding January the 6th, that there's an expectancy of some violence to be part of? I can't say I don't know where all of this has come from. I see where it all come from. It has come from people being selfish, greedy, and wanting to make a change regardless of what the majority of people want. So we got a problem here. I don't want to see a police state come out of this, but something has to change in our politics, in our order of things. Ms. Banks, you're the researcher. I'm sure you should have an answer.
These are interesting times, and
it's scary.
It's very scary, and there's a very vocal minority, about, I would say, 1/3 of the nation that are advocating and pushing this conspiracy theories and misinformation, and really waging an outright assault on American democracy. I mean, it starts and you attempt to erode confidence in our election process. And, the big lie is continuing to be. And so it's a huge concern. Our democracy is under attack. Many would say it's on a lifeline. But we have to continue to be transparent. As you stated, Milton, the fact that the Pentagon told the truth is important. It's critical that we have transparency.
And let me just point out something that's important so we don't have any misinformation leaving the show. I do appreciate callers like Larry's called in, but I need to correct something real quickly. COVID, folks, is a respiratory disease. It occludes your lungs. In other words, your lung gets an infection process and you can't breathe. In other words, among all the bad thing about the disease process, the aching, the pain, but you can't breathe. And so at the beginning stage of treatment, they were putting ventilators on everybody, and now they come up with better treatment modality. But when the coroner's office are tagging people with COVID, it's accurate. It's not faking, because what happened is that my personal experience is I've seen what they do to the bodies. They put 2 bags on those bodies. I never understood that. They have protective equipment and gear when they're dealing with these COVID patients, and they're 2 baggers. And I always trouble me. I'm thinking, how can a virus transfer if you're dead? And that's what I didn't understand. I'm gonna have one of the scientists on the show to tell us to. But folks, people are dying. It's not fake. It's not like the virus is resulted from somebody taking a vaccine and getting constipation. I don't know where that theory came from, but that's not accurate. The truth of the matter is that when people contract the disease process, they have a lot of symptoms, and the most significant one is that they can't breathe. So one final closing comment from our expert panel, Milton.
Oh, I apologize again, Nathaniel, for being late on the program. But there's hope, there's hope, there's hope, there's hope. Like I say, the Pentagon, even though it had to be pushed, stirred that hope in me that there is a possibility for more transparency and truth in our government. So there is hope, but we have to surely work hard at it, because people like Larry Elder, following the Trump president do use the fear of people for their own self-benefit. And so we got to work hard to fight against them.
Attorney Banks?
The statistics are clearly showing around the country that the vast majority of the population are, and deaths from COVID-19 are those that are unvaccinated. The hospitals are beginning to make these ethical decisions, which is really scary, around rationing care to those folks that may have a chance of survival. And so I would say, please get vaccinated and please stay safe.
Okay, one final comment. Next week we'll have Attorney Carlson talk about Social Security and workers' comp, and but there's a lot of things going on nationally. But the one thing I want you to know is that if you have friends or relatives who have not been vaccinated, make sure you talk to them today and try to have them go to the nearest pharmacy to get vaccination done right away. Because, folks, the life you save may be your own. Thank you for listening to us. I thank you, my special expert panel of Attorney Milton Grimes, Attorney Vanita Banks. Thank you. And our technical producer, Dr. Sonia Smith. Thank you all. And have a blessed day.
Thank you.